Hi everyone, welcome to today's live analysis session. So I'll just give it about 1 more minute for more people to join us before we get the session started. At the same time, a very happy new year to all of you. Right, so for all of you guys who have been with us for the past year, it's been great, getting to know you guys. And also for this year, right, let's see what we can achieve. So for those of you guys who just joined us, we are doing our live analysis session. So I'll just give it about 1 more minute for more people to join us before we get the session started. At the same time, if you guys have any questions or any charts that you want us to take a look at, do put them under the questions chat as well. So we have both the webinar and Q&A chat open, right? So if you have any questions, any charts you want us to take a look at, do put them there. Okay, so let's get the session started. So I'm Lee Sing, right? So I provide FX advisory to institutional clients. I'm also part of the team that's recognized by the Technical Analyst Awards as finalist for the best FX research. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. So if you're watching a recording of it and you have any questions for the sessions done on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, right, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you're with us live right now, please put your questions under the questions tab. So just a quick disclaimer before we get the session started. The information presented here is not to be treated as investment advice. It's for educational purposes only. Okay, so this is what we will be going through for today, right? So this is the agenda. We will first hop onto to look at the key economic events on the economic calendar, right? So what are the key events and what are the impact on different currencies? We will then move on to the trade setups and also the Q&A session. So throughout the session, we will have the Q&A chat box open. So if you guys have any questions, do put them under the questions chat. So before we hop onto the trade setups, right, let me just bring up the economic calendar. Okay, so for the economic calendar, right, you can just go to either Forex Factory or also Vantage economic calendar, right? So either one, I use them interchangeably. So in this case, you can see essentially for economic calendar. So in this example, maybe let's just go to Vantage Markets. Okay. Okay, so just under education and tools, economic calendar here. So you can see that these are categorized according to the key events, right? So the ones with in red as well as the ones in amber are the ones with higher and medium impact. It also shows the currencies that are impacted here. So you can see that key events for this week includes dollar, as well as the FOMC meeting minutes. So this is a high impact event as well. And also, so mainly on the dollar for this week. So it will be jobs data, as well as crude oil inventory data for the week, right? Of course, other data include the retail sales data in the Eurozone region, as well as CAD jobs data. Excuse me. And of course, right, the first Friday of every month, we have the US non-farm payroll data. So we'll be seeing this Friday as well. Okay, Happy New Year to you as well. Is it strong? Yeah, Happy New Year to you, right? So unfortunately, so far this week has been a tough week for gold spot, with bulls keep breaking. I see major resistance has been reached, waiting for today's first month big news to cool down the bull momentum, right? It's 1800, a hard support now. Right, so daily momentum has been crazy, so it could come crashing down quickly. Okay, so let's take a look at gold spot in a moment. Okay, so let's just hop onto the gold spot chart first. So you can see very strong movement up here, right? So as usual, we want to take a look at the higher time frame levels. So you can see that on the daily, we are seeing very strong bullish candles. Also because usually in December, right, you can see that dollar has been weakening quite a bit, and coming into the first month of this year, you can see that I think the past 2 days, right, dollar has been on a pretty strong move down. Take a look at dollar. Can see that dollar has been on a downtrend, and right now we're just seeing consolidation around this area. So this could be what's causing the gold's movement as well. So gold is a dollar denominated asset, right? So when dollar weakens, then gold would push higher. So just from a daily perspective, right, we can see strong movement up in gold, right? So again, from the higher time frame. So first on the monthly perspective, you can see that just on the monthly. So for those of you guys who identify supply demand areas, you can see this region. Gold, it's currently sitting on this monthly supply area, right? But again, we need confirmation on the smaller time frame. You can see that right now it's sitting within this region, but if you're on the daily or even the weekly time frame, you're still seeing bullish market structure, right? So bullish market structures are usually characterized by higher lows and higher highs. So the idea is that when prices are in an uptrend, right, what happens is that the low itself should hold, whereas the highs are constantly violated. So in an uptrend, right, pushing into this resistance area or the supply area on the monthly, what we want to see is a change in trend or a change in structure, right, where prices are no longer forming this higher lows and higher highs, right? So this bullish move up. Once there's a change in trend, it's the first sign that we could be seeing a respect of the supply area and potentially a reversal. So we don't see that on the daily, right? So if you take a look at the daily, I just mark out the highs and lows. You can see that these are the highs and it's forming consecutive higher highs, higher lows. You can see that the lows are not violated, right? So just in terms of the daily structure, it's still bullish, right? So coming into this area, even if you have to take a look at it in close, you can see pretty much the same thing as well, right? So if you have to take a look at the turning points, you can see subsequent higher highs, subsequent higher lows. So if you're not familiar with the candlestick pattern, right, just taking a look at prices in close, especially on the higher time frame, can give you an idea of whether there's a change in trend as well. So this is on the daily picture. You can see just on the daily itself, we have this area, so this candle. So there's a strong break above this, and this is the candle that's still held within the wick. So this is the daily demand. So I'll just put this in a different color here. So this will be in blue for the daily demand, right? So this is on in a monthly supply area, but you can see as far as what we have here on the daily and even the 4 hours, we are not seeing any reversal yet. You can see that there's no structure to be formed, and what we're seeing here is just higher lows and higher highs being formed. So for me, at least on the 4 hours, it's still showing bullish market structure. You can see that there's some form of trend line being respected as well here. Right, and this area, this demand area, it's basically the daily area. And the reason why we highlighted this area is because you can see that this candle still held within the wick of its previous move, which is this move over here. Before we saw that break above it. So this area on the 4 hours, right, it's also in line with the ascending trend line. For me, ascending trend lines tend to be subjective. So I use them in the analysis, but they are not key determining factors. So in this case, you can see that a pullback into this area itself, right? As long as price holds above this zone. So this zone, it's at around the 1826 level. So just for round number 6, right, let's just use 1826. So in this case, right, as long as price holds above this area, there's still a chance for more upside. So what we want to see on the smaller time frame, again, it's reversal. So for me, at least on the 4 hours and daily, it's still bullish. So if you take a look at what we have on the left, let me just hide this, right? So you can see what we have on the left here. So what we are seeing over here, it's basically price coming into this region, testing this as a resistance, held it. You can see how it held as a support area here. So even if I were to draw a horizontal line across, you can see this region. Let me just remove this and cut it neatly, right? So this zone rather, right? So this area here, where price came to test this region, so it held as a resistance and then as a support level here, again, before the rejection, and then price came in and it basically came into as a resistance area here. So we see reaction of the resistance. This is probably from a smaller time frame, right? So you can see that this move is the one where we saw a strong break of the last low that we have here. So essentially, this is an area that we want to consider as well, right? So this is a supply region on the smaller time frame. So if I were to just highlight this level, you can see that this is the supply area here. So maybe let me just put this in a different color. So this area. So essentially, right, what we are seeing over here is that you can see that price broke through the supply. It's currently testing this area, right? So if we do see any pullback, right, this would be the demand or the support area to consider. And this area here, right, so I will not extend it all the way since it has been broken. So in this case, what I want to do here is to extend halfway through. Okay, so what you want to see over here is that you can see that there's acknowledgement of the supply area, but it did not hold and price just continued higher. And the acknowledgement comes in here. You can see, right? So even in terms of line chart, you can see how price came in, acknowledged the supply area over here, and then it pushed higher. So as long as price hold above this demand area, right? For me, right, in this case, it's still structure. So what you want to see ideally is new structure to be formed to show you that price coming into the supply area. And if there is a change on the smaller time frame, it shows you that this low is a weak low because it fails to form a new high. In that case, right, that's the first sign that there's a change in trend. So these are the key levels for me right now on the 4 hours picture. Right, you can see here. So price broke above a supply area. If we do see any pullback within this region, I think we could see a small reaction. So again, when price comes into this region, right, keeping in mind that we are on the monthly supply area, but on the daily, it's not showing any bearish movement, right? On the daily, it's still showing you higher lows and higher highs. Any pullback within this area itself, right, would still continue on an uptrend. So ideally what I want to see coming into this region, it's again, right? So if we do see a pullback into this region, you can see that on the smaller time frame, you will see a downtrend. So subsequent lower lows and lower highs being formed. So coming into this region, what we want to wait for, it's again a change in structure. So we would not be able to review this, right? Because markets are still developing. So let's take a look at it again on Friday, right, and even next week. But the idea is that even if you focus on this portion of the chart, you can see that any small pullbacks, you would actually see a smaller time frame structure being formed. So focus on this area, right, where I circle this. So let's just go to the 5 minutes. So the idea is that given the fractal nature of markets, any trends that you see on the smaller time frame will form the bigger time frames trend. So which also means that any reversal that we're seeing on the bigger time frame will first be noticed on the smaller time frame. So in this area, you can see that you can see subsequent lower lows and lower highs being formed. Right now, this is the last low that we have, right? So if price continues breaking downwards, we could see that pullback on the bigger picture. So that's the idea. Okay, so when price comes into this region, what you want to wait for, it's again a change in structure on the 15 minutes or 30 minutes to signal that there's a potential for more upside. So that's the idea. So this is on Go, right? So other setups that I want to show you guys that I'm waiting for, right? So yes, fundamentally FOMC minutes hold a lot of volatility. Yes, so for this week, right, key events would be your FOMC meeting minutes. You have your jobs data for US as well, right? So we will be seeing quite a few movements. So I think it's best that we wait for the release of the FOMC meeting minutes. So in this case, we wouldn't know where price would spike, right? So this could be just short-term volatility. So yep, so I would say that like, if possible, either you wait for a change in trend on smaller picture over here, if there's a clear structure being formed. If not, I would just wait for FOMC, the release of FOMC minutes. Okay, so I hope that helps. Right, so let's take a look at dollar index next. So I don't think anything changed much from what we did previously, right? So on the higher time frame, you can see that dollar index is sitting on this level. So it's sitting on the support region here. So it was a resistance that price tested, and then right now it's sitting on the support region. This is on the monthly picture. We did a Fibonacci retracement previously as well, right? And I think 2 weeks back. So Fibonacci retracement taking this move, starting from the lowest point to the highest point. So if you're not familiar with Fibonacci retracement, right, not to worry. So we will be having a Fibonacci retracement crash course this month, right? So we'll cover Fibonacci retracements, extensions, essentially. These are the things that you see us use in the live analysis as well. So for Fibonacci retracement, right, when we did the retracement, we found a 50% retracement over here. So it lines up with the zone. And for Fibonacci extension, they are zigzag patterns. So what we did is that we identified zigzag patterns, and they're essentially projections of where price might end up. Of course, as with every level, right, you will see Fibonacci retracements and extensions at every almost every interval. So what's important is that when you use these levels, right, identify the zones that come along with it. So identifying graphical areas, right, key zones that price interacted with a few times, right, these are crucial. So the idea is that you identify these zones and use these levels, right, to support the analysis instead of just taking it blindly off any Fibonacci retracements and extensions. So having found this, right, so you see that there are Fibonacci confluence levels here. And if you take a look at it on the weekly, you can see there isn't any big difference from what we have on the monthly. You just see a clearer movement, right? But in terms of structure, there isn't much, right? You can just see a strong downtrend coming in. And then on the daily as well. So you can see on the daily, it's holding below a descending channel. So for channel to be valid, you need price to tap it at least twice at the top, twice at the bottom. So we highlighted the support region previously, right? Just based off this area. I believe this is on the weekly, right? So taking a look at the weekly region. So if you extend it across, you can see that's pretty much if you want to use round number, right, I'll just take it at 102.50. If not, just take a look at the zone, right? So zones are easier to work with because it gives you a range, right, where prices are. So in case of any smaller time frame reversal, right, as long as price still holds within the higher time frame zone, right, there's always a chance of that reversal. But take a look at the daily, you can see that it's still in a downtrend, right? So again, bearish market structure, lower low, lower highs being formed. So you can see here, right? And even if I were to take a look at it in line chart, right? Just draw out the highs and lows, right? So identify the significant turning points. You can see that there's subsequent lower lows and lower highs being formed. Right now, this is the new high, right? And this is the new low. So what's interesting to note is that you can see consolidation within this area. So ideally, right, if prices were to continue on a downtrend, right, we should be seeing a break of this low here. So ideally price breaking below it and continuation to the downside. So right now we're seeing some kind of consolidation, right? You can see that price came to test this high on the daily. But at the same time, right, this high that we have, right, it fails to put in a new low, right? So this high could be broken. So this is the idea, right, on the daily time frame, but it's still holding in a bearish market structure. Let's take a look at the 4 hours time frame. So on the 4 hours time frame, what we have here is that we highlighted, before that, let me just go back to the daily. So on the daily, we highlighted this supply region, right? So again, how we identified the supply region, comparing the candles, you can see that this area or this doji that we have, right, held within the wick before we saw this strong bearish movement down. So what this shows is that there's hesitation here, right, before it's characterized by strong selling. So in this area itself, right, this was the supply region that we identified, right, a few weeks back. So in this case, you can see that price came in, tapped into this area, and we're seeing that reversal. If you go into the 4 hours time frame, right, so 4 hours time frame, it's interesting. You're seeing this consolidation. This is one. And right now, what we have is that we have a new low that's being formed. So you can see that if you mark out the highs and low, this is a low, this is a low, and this is the low, right? So I would not consider this. The reason for that is because this is held within the range. You can see that it's within the range itself. And as usual, right, so using the concept of highs and lows, you can see that when this low failed to form a new high, you can see that this low itself would be targeted, right? Or this low is weak and hence it will be run. So how do we know whether this low is going to hold, right? It's when price comes into a higher time frame supply, and you see on the smaller time frame, you're showing change in trend. This is when we know that supply is starting to gain control on the smaller time frame, and hence this low itself fails to do its job. That's why it will be run. So that's the idea, right, or the concept behind this. So you can see that this is a new low that's being formed, price pushed up. So as using the same idea, right? So when price pushed up, right, you can see that it came into a supply region, which is this daily area here. So what this tells us is that if supply starts gaining control in this region, right, we can see that this low itself failed to form a new high. It fails to break above this area. Hence, this low itself would be a target. Price could come into this region again, right, before we see developments here. So that's the idea, right? So this is on the 4 hours. You're seeing this pullback, and you can see that within the 4 hours picture, right, if you go to the 15 minutes, you can see very clear bearish market structure, lower lows and lower highs being formed here, right? So if I were to just remove this, so you can see lower lows and lower highs being formed, right? So if I were to mark out just this bearish move, right? So this is the pullback. So you can see that price, the assumption is that price should continue forming lower lows and lower highs until it mitigates or it comes into a demand area, right? So in order to see whether demand area on the higher time frame would hold, right? So let me use the same example and identify the demand area on the 4 hours. So you can see the demand area on the 4 hours in this case will be this region, right? If you go into the 1 hour, this is probably clearer. So this area here. Let me just put this in, let's say in blue. Okay, so the idea is that again, you can see how price reacted. There was supply and then price broke above it. So this region itself, right? And this candle on the H1 is the candle that still held within the wick before we saw that failure. So this one means the demand area. So what we want to see is that you should see that on the 15 minutes time frame, it's still showing bearish market structure with lower lows and lower highs being formed. Coming into this region, right? If this demand area is to hold, we should see that change in structure. So price either failing to form a new low or price breaking above a high that took out the previous low. So that's the idea behind this. Okay, so on the dollar index itself, you can see that right now, if we are on the 4 hours picture, it reverse of a supply region, right, coming into potentially a demand area here. But again, in order to check whether this demand area would hold, we need to go to the smaller time frame, right, to see if there's a change in structure on the smaller time frame. If not, right, if price continues on the downside, what this just shows us is that this low itself failed to break above the high. So in this case, right, when that happens, this low would be a target. So this is the picture on dollar index, right? Let's take a look at euro dollar. So the next one that I want to show, right, it's on euro dollar and then on pound dollar. So on euro dollar itself, okay, so I have a comment, right? So I do believe with no FOMC hawkish stop yet, plus dollar index fails to make a lower swing low and approach the local high, it will push dollar index high back. But gold's current strong bull level is also countered by bond yield. Yes. So in this case, right, so I think what would be best is to wait for FOMC meeting minutes, right? So some kind of trigger, and also if there's a clearer picture on just based on the TA side of things, right, we'll be able to get a better gauge of where prices are. If you take a look at gold right now, right, as we saw earlier, you can see that right now on gold. So this is the view on gold that we published, I think, a few days back. But if you just take a look at gold on the higher time frame, right? Yeah, so you can see on gold on the higher time frame, at least where we are on the 4 hours, right? So 4 hours, the daily, the ones with higher time frames are supposed to give less noise, right? Given that, you know, it's less choppy as compared to, let's say, the 15 minutes or 5 minutes. So in this case, right now on gold, at least from a technical perspective, is still not showing any signs of reversal yet. So ideally, we want to wait for a clearer low, right? A clearer structure to be formed to tell us that that low it fails to basically does its job, right, and putting a new high. And in that case, this would be a low that we can target. And it's also a sign that prices are then respecting this higher time frames bearish order flow. So let's see, right? So we'll probably be able to have a clearer picture either next week or this Friday. Okay, let's take a look at euro dollar. Right, so on euro dollar, if you take a look at it on the higher time frame again, right? So as with all dollar pairs, right, in December, you can see that basically most of the pairs trading against the greenback, right, they are pushing higher, right? So partly also due to the dollar's weakness. So in this case, you can see here, right? So just on the bigger time frame, on the weekly picture, you can see that there is a support level, turn resistance, this area here. Just seeing how price reacted as a support, and then again over here, where we saw the reaction and a reaction over here, right? A break and close below, retesting this region as a resistance coming into this area. This is the picture on the weekly. If you take a look at the daily, you can see that again, right? No clear structure, clear higher lows and higher highs being formed right now. You can see that this is the last low that's being formed, price broke above it, right? And this is potentially what you can see as a double top, right? So for a double top, we need a clear break of the neckline and 2 equal highs. So in this example, you can see 2 equal highs, and again, right over here. So this is one, right? So when price breaks below this region, right, any pullback to this supply area itself would be an area to consider. So in this case, you can see that this push down, if you take a look at it on the 4 hours, you probably see a clearer picture here. So on the 4 hours, you can see that there is a clear clear area here. So let me just mark this up, right? So you can see what happened essentially. Price came in, tested as a respected this area as a demand, you see that reaction here before the failure of this zone. So for me, this is the first area to consider, right? Because price reacted to it before we saw a strong bearish move down. So in this case, right, if you believe that price action discounts all the information, right? So everything's presented in price action. You can see that this area itself, right? So this area is the supply region on the 4 hours. So again, right, if price comes into this area, what we want to wait for, it's a change in structure on the smaller time frame. And what this then tells us is that this low itself is a weak low and a potential target. And what's more important is that it's aligned with the higher time frame because prices are potentially sitting in a supply region here. So again, right, you can see, like, just taking a look at this pullback, if you take a look at it on the 1 hour, even the 30 minutes, right? If I take a look at market structure, you can see again, right? So this is the last high and price broke above it. So right now we're still seeing bullish order flow on the 15 minutes. You can see higher lows and higher highs being formed. What this also suggests is that this is the last leg that we saw the break above this high, right? So as long as price holds within this leg, you can see here, right? So if you do want to play a smaller setup, so what we're waiting for clear shots is for price to enter this region, this area. Not only that, right, we want to see that there is a clear change in structure in the form of a break of a last low and a pullback before taking the shots. That's one, right? If you're on the 15 minutes time frame or even a 1 hour, you can see that just taking a look at 1 hour structure, there is a break above this area, right? Price testing as a resistance and then holding it as a support. You can see this region here. So for me on the 1 hour, this is the last demand area on the 1 hour. So if we do see a pullback, right? So if price pulled back into this area before we see it tapping into this zone, right? Again, right, there are long opportunities here as well. So this area over here, right? So again, this is on a 1 hour picture. So if you want to wait for confirmation, you can either go to the 15 minutes or the 5 minutes, right? So you should be seeing this area, this pullback, right? So this is how you can combine the analysis across different time frames. You can see this pullback, you can see clear lower lows and lower highs being formed. So the structure, if I were to go on to the 5 minutes, you can see here, right? So just take a look at this pullback area. So basically this zone, focus on this portion of the chart. Seeing that pullback, you should see subsequent lower lows and lower highs being this form, right? So this forms part of the pullback leg. So if we do see a reversal here, you can see that the change in structure would happen first to tell you that this demand area is indeed respected for a bullish move up. So these are the two zones that I'm looking at, right? On the 1 hour. So 1 hour, this area would be, let me just highlight the demand area. So this area stands at around 1.0580. Right, so one more thing to consider is that round numbers, right, 80, 20s, 50s, right? These are things that you want to include in your analysis as well. So these are potentially numbers that bigger players are looking at, right? So taking a look at round numbers, so this area here. So when price comes into this region, right, you want to check whether this demand areas are holding. Just go onto the smaller time frame to see if there's a change in trend, right, on the smaller picture, or a change in market structure to signal more upside. The potential target, right? So if we do see a change in trend over here, right, potential target would be this high, because if this is the high causing the pullback, right, once you see a change in structure, what this shows you is that this high fails to put in a new low and it's a weak high and it's a potential target. So this would be one area where you want to either take partials or protect the position, right? After demand, it's being shown on the 1 hour here. Okay, so this is on Euro dollar. So let's take a look at the other setup, which is on pound dollar. So if you take a look at pound dollar, so pound dollar on the monthly time frame has been sitting on this key resistance. It's still testing this key resistance on the monthly. You can see this area, right? Even in line chart is a clear support and resistance level. We saw how price tested this level as a support, and right now it's just testing this level. That's on the monthly picture, right? But as always, right, we know that prices could spend quite a while, right, in this area with the consolidation. So in this case, right, when you take a look at the weekly picture, you can see that there isn't anything much on the weekly. Price came into this area, right, and right now we're seeing this retracement. Let me just remove these markings, right? So if you take a look at the daily, you can see on the daily, right, again, just marking out this move, right? You can see subsequent higher lows and higher highs being formed and a clear break below this area here. So this is the daily, this area. So price testing it as a support and then a resistance, holding it as a resistance, and right now it's within this zone again. So what this shows us is that there's limited upside before it reaches this area. So on the 4 hours picture, you can see that there are equal highs that are being formed over here. What this could also do is that it could be inducement, right? Or basically it could entice sellers to come in once price reaches a new high, and then it sets a lot of orders, right? So this can be in the form of breakout trades for buy orders or even sell orders, right? With stop losses lying slightly above. So this could be an area of liquidity. So essentially, right, we again don't want to take an immediate position. We want to see when price coming into this supply region, where we saw how price interacted with this zone. So coming into this region, we want to see that there is a change in structure. So on the 4 hours, if you see this pullback leg, this last leg, if you go to the 30 minutes, you can see the same thing, higher lows and higher highs being formed. So coming to this area, right, the supply region on the higher time frame, again, if prices were to respect this higher time frame, we should be seeing that change in trend, right? So this should come from the either a change in market structure on your 30 minutes or a low, right, that fails to make a new high, and that's a sign that this low itself, right, on the higher time frame. So recall that we took this low from a 4 hours perspective, right? So this low fails to put in a new high, and hence is a targeted low. So that's the idea. But right now, where we are, at least on the 30 minutes, you can see clear higher lows and higher highs being formed. So on the 30 minutes picture, right, even though we're in the supply region, you can see on the 30 minutes, the last demand area that we have is this area here. So this is the picture on the 30 minutes. So just put this in blue, right? So again, clear higher lows and higher highs. If you take a look at it in line chart, you can see this as well. If I were to mark out the highs and lows, right? So this is the last area to consider. So if we do see a pullback from here, right, and price entering into this region, right? So once price enter, you can set an alert on this zones. So when price enters into this region again, right, you see this pullback leg. So focus on this pullback leg, right? If you go to the 5 minutes, you can see again, right, it should be forming clear lower lows and lower highs. So just wait for a change in structure coming into this area, and you can play along targeting this high on the smaller time frame. And also, of course, right, a lot of it is on trade management as well. So once price reaches the structure on the higher time frame, which caused that pullback, you want to either take partials or even shift your stop loss to break even. So those are the two setups that I have, right? So mainly on pound dollar. So we covered euro dollar, pound dollar, and dollar index, right? So we will be seeing quite a few dollar data, right, in terms of jobs as well as FOMC meeting minutes, which could drive volatility in the dollar and also a supply region. So again, right, for that, it's not loading, but as we saw earlier, right, so goes testing the supply region. So we should be seeing pretty much the same setup. Okay, so I hope that that helps, right? And I see that we have no other questions as well. Okay, so for tomorrow, right, we will be doing our Fibonacci series, right? So you can also sign up for the webinar at vantagemarkets.com/webinars. Right, and if you have any questions regarding funding of accounts, do reach out to support@vantagemarkets.com. Okay, so with that, we have come to the end of the session, right? Thanks for keeping it interactive as always, right? And if you guys have any other questions, right, do put them under the tab. If not, right, this will be the end of today's session. If you want a recording of this session, right, just go to Vantage Markets, the same website, right? At the bottom, you should be seeing the previous recording. So let me just bring this up. So you should be seeing our previous recordings, and you should be able to get access to that. So all the sessions are recorded, right? You will be able to review them as well. So on Wednesdays and Fridays, we have our live trading session. So this is the session for today, right? So for tomorrow, we are doing our Fibonacci series. For Friday, we'll be doing a review of today's setups and also any other setups available. Okay, so with that, we've come to the end of the session with no other questions. So it's great. And thanks for having all the questions that you guys were asking earlier, right? So we'll catch you guys again tomorrow, right? Thanks everyone. Stay safe, trade safe, and take care.